The H-1B visa has been a key driver of America's tech boom over the past decades. But today, America is going through an H-1B crisis, leading to some tech workers fleeing the US and others wondering if they should even come to the US in the first place. So in this video, we're going to look at what's happening, why it's happening, and what it means for the future of tech in America. If you haven't heard about the H-1B visa, here's a quick overview. The H-1B visa is a non-immigrant visa in the United States that allows U.S. companies to employ foreign workers in specialty occupations. Many tech workers who come to the United States do so under this visa. It was created in 1986 to address a shortage of skilled workers in the U.S., and it's been hugely successful. In fact, there are now calls to rename the H-1B visa to the Silicon Visa due to its role in bringing so many tech workers into the country. There are two important things to know about the H-1B visa. First, unlike most other visas which are employer-specific, the H-1B visa is actually allocated to people. This means that if you get an H-1B visa, then any company can hire you. Second, unlike most other visas which have caps on how many people can get them each year, the H-1B visa actually has a per-person cap. This means that once a person gets an H-1B visa, then there's no limit on how many people they can bring into the US. The limit is effectively just the total number of H-1B visas issued each year. Now there's a total of 85,000 H-1B visas issued each year. However, only 65,000 of those are new visas. The other 20,000 are given to people who are already in the US and renewing their H-1B visa. There's also another 20,000 visas set aside for people coming from countries with a special trade agreement with the US. If you're interested in learning more about these special trade agreements, definitely check out my video on the topic where I go into way more detail. Each year, the 65,000 new H-1B visas are actually split into two halves. The first half, 30,000 visas, are set aside for people who have bachelor's degrees or higher. The second half, the remaining 35,000 visas, are allocated on a lottery basis regardless of education level. So if you have a bachelor's degree or higher, you can apply for the first round of H-1B visas. And if you don't get selected in that first round, then you can still be selected in the second round where everyone is eligible. So now let's talk about America's H-1B crisis. What's happening is that not only is the H-1B lottery becoming harder and harder to win each year, but when people do win the lottery, they're facing increasingly long processing times and increasing denial rates at the consulate. In terms of the lottery, historically, it's been relatively easy to get into the H-1B lottery. For example, in 2014, of the 170,000 people who applied, 85,000 were selected, a selection rate of 50%. But things have changed dramatically since then. Last year in 2022, 274,000 people applied for the H-1B visa. But despite that, only 85,000 were selected, a selection rate of just 31%. That means that 3 times as many people were applying for an H-1B visa last year than in 2014, but the number of winners stayed exactly the same. The chance of winning the lottery today is lower than it's ever been before. But that's just the beginning of the story, because even if you do manage to get selected in the lottery, you still have to go through the consulate process. And there too, things are not looking good. The biggest issue at the consulate stage is the notorious RFE, which stands for Request for Evidence. Basically, consular officers have a lot of discretion at this stage to ask for more evidence to support your application. They do this by sending out an RFE, hence the name. This is very common. In fact, around 20% of H-1B visas end up getting RFEs. The problem, though, is that these RFEs are taking an incredibly long time to process. Some people have waited for months and months without getting their case resolved. And the worst part is that during this time, people aren't able to legally work. This is leading people to either leave the country or just not enter in the first place. It's hard to find exact numbers on how many people are affected by this, but anecdotally, it seems like the situation is affecting hundreds if not thousands of people. This is in turn creating a huge backlog of H-1B applications, which means that even if you do get selected in the lottery, you might have to wait months and months before you can actually go to the US. On top of all this, the US State Department has been rejecting more and more H-1B visa applicants, especially those working in the tech industry. In the past, less than 1% of H-1B visa applicants were denied entry. But today, that number is closer to 10%, which is the highest level ever seen. The reasons given for these denials vary, but the general reasoning is that consular officers want to see stronger ties between the applicant and the U.S. For example, they might ask applicants to show stronger family or economic ties back home, or they might reject applicants who they feel would take jobs away from American workers. Given everything going on, it's not surprising that many tech workers are leaving the U.S. for friendlier pastures in Canada, Australia, and elsewhere. So now let's talk about why America is going through this H-1B crisis. There's really three main reasons. The first reason is that more and more companies are applying to the H-1B lottery. As we mentioned earlier, the number of H-1B applications has nearly tripled over the past decade. However, the number of visas has stayed the same. More demand and the same supply means prices go up, and that's exactly what's happened. Another reason why there's so much competition for the H-1B lottery is because the visa has become an end in and of itself. People are coming to the U.S. not necessarily because they want to work in the U.S., but rather because they want to get the H-1B visa. Once they have the H-1B visa, they can basically work anywhere. So people will take any job offer they can get. In fact, a recent survey found that almost 40% of H-1B visa holders would switch employers if it meant they could stay in the U.S. permanently. Reason number 3 why there's such a big crisis is simply bureaucracy. With any visa system, there's going to be backlogs and inefficiencies, but the H-1B visa has gotten so popular that the system just isn't able to keep up. So what does the future hold for the H-1B visa? Well, recently there have been calls to double the number of H-1B visas issued each year. But given the political climate in Washington, it's unlikely that anything will change anytime soon. In fact, there are growing calls to make the H-1B visa even harder to get. For example, there's a bill going through Congress right now that would require everyone who applies to have a graduate degree. Other bills have been proposed that would raise the minimum salary requirement or even eliminate the visa lottery system altogether. I hope this isn't the end of the H-1B visa, but given where immigration policy is headed, it's tough to say what will happen next. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new.